Imagine if you and our family move into a house where a family was hanged from tree and you get haunted by the same killer. Hello guys, this is No Brainer and today I'm gonna explain a horror thriller movie from 2012 called Sinister. Subscribe for more videos like this and watch out for spoilers ahead. The film opens with Super 8 footage depicting a family of 4 standing beneath a tree with hoods over their heads and nooses around their necks. An unseen figure soars through a limb acting as a counterweight, causing them all to be hanged. Months later, washed-up true crime writer Ellison Oswalt moves into the murdered family's home with his wife, Tracy, and their 2 children. Only Ellison is aware that the house they are moving into was the crime scene. Ellison intends to use the murders as the basis for his new book, and hopes that his research will turn up the fate of the family's 5th member, a little girl named Stephanie who disappeared following the murders. Ellison is a semi-famous author who wrote a blockbuster 10 years ago that blew the lid off of a violent and unsolved murder case, and today he moves from town to town looking for that next big murder mystery that will put him back in the limelight. When moving things, he goes to one of the rooms where he finds his daughter drawing paintings in the wall, so he warns her not to paint anywhere except her own room. His daughter, Ashley, is not happy with her new home, so he asks his dad when they are gonna go back to their original home, to which her dad replied, once if they don't like it here they will then move to their previous home after selling all the books. While the moving van is still in the driveway, the local sheriff shows up to greet Ellison, and warn him not to cause any trouble. It seems that in his past books Ellison had bashed the local cops pretty badly, and so he's not very popular when he moves into town. Elliston's wife suspects that they may be living close to the murder scene and asks directly if they are living 2 doors down from a crime scene, and Elliston truthfully answers, no. At the end of the exchange we get a hint that the house Elliston and family are now occupying is the same house that the grisly murder of a family took place, all family members except the youngest child being hung from a tree in the backyard. Ellison goes about setting up his office, and getting all of the evidence surrounding the murder. He's studying pinned to easels and arranged around the room. When he goes into the attic to put some things away, he finds a single box in the middle of the attic floor, with a scorpion hanging out by it. He kills the scorpion and takes the box downstairs to see that it contains Super 8 movie reels and a movie projector. When he is alone later that night, he plays one of the films to see that the group hanging murder of the family that lived in this house was caught on film. He replays the clip to see all the hints he can get from it. He is left with the questions: where is Stephanie and who filmed the tape? He comes out into his backyard and sees the tree in which the family was hanged. While returning back to his office, he hears a creak noise from around the house. On exploring, he finds his daughter Ashley running around finding bathroom. In her bedroom, Ashley says to her dad she wants him to write the best book ever written. He promises her to write one of the best. He continue watching the next clip. This time there was another family in the video having fun in the banks of the mountain. And suddenly a garage with dim lights is shown where the family, being alive, were tied up inside the car and the car was set on fire, resulting in their death. At this point Ellison's hands starts shaking and he decides to file a complaint in the nearest police station. While in the phone he sees all of his Kentucky blood books and he remembers the success he got from that. He ends the call and decides to solve the case. While looking at some of the photos, he thinks that why the killer came back to keep these films in the attic. When he continues watching the film, he hears a loud bang from the other room. He comes outside to check and he finds a moving box kept in a room at the end of the hallway. His son comes out of the box in a weird manner and starts screaming. He was having a nightmare after a long time, so Ellison takes him outside to get some fresh air. The next day, when his wife and his children left the home, he starts watching the next clip. While going through the film that shows a family being drowned by being pulled into a swimming pool while bound to a lawn chair with duct tape, he sees the reflection in the water of a strange-looking creature with a white face and black around his eyes. When Ellison approaches the sheet pinned to the wall being used as a movie screen, the film catches fire and the images of this dark spectre are lost. He tries to edit the film as it was burned. While editing, the family members arrived and Ellison finds them arguing about why he drew a picture of 4 people hanging from a tree in the classroom whiteboard. Ellison and Tracy argues about her not knowing that he was writing a book based upon people getting hung from a tree. At night, Ellison watches another film in which the killer was in a house slitting every member's throat one by one. At the end, he couldn't watch a boy's throat being slit. While watching the film again in his laptop, he sees a sign painted in the wall and an artifact with that family's name. He searched them on Google and came across an interview where the reporter was explaining about the murder being a triple homicide. Suddenly, he hears a creak from the attic and the lights goes off. He hears another creak and goes out to see with his phone flashlight. A loud bang from the attic shooks him and he hears footsteps running across the attic. He goes to the attic to check. Once there, he hears creepy sounds and finds a snake under a box. In the box, there was a drawing depicting the hung family from the tree with a Mr. Boogie watching them. The same with the family drowned in the pool and the family who were burned alive in a car and the family killed in the home. There was always someone named Mr. Boogie watching them in each of them. This gave Ellison a clue to check all the footages once again and to look for this Mr. Boogie. While returning downstairs, he falls down from the attic. The next day, Ellison talks about the footsteps he heard in the attic with an officer who thinks it was just a squirrel. The officer asks Ellison for an autograph. In there, the deputy asks him that if he can help him with this case. Ellison tells him that he wants some address details about the family that was killed by their throats being slit off in 1998 and the family who were burnt alive in 1979 in their own garage. After the deputy left, he watches his own interview, and in the interview he was asked a question to choose between the justice for the family suffered or seeing his book at #1 New York best time sellers. He says justice for the family, but in the present he is doing exactly the opposite. Ellison commits most of the films to files on his MacBook Pro and starts going through them frame by frame. He finds that within the filming of another family murder, there is a quick scene where that same face is caught in a mirror in the hallway. He captures and prints this face and pins it to his board. He receives a call from Deputy so-and-so. Deputy says him that he found the address and confirms that these families were murdered. He also said that the family who was killed in the car, one of their 9-year-old son, was never found. They used to live in 8224 Billington, Sacramento. The family killed in their homes and had their throats slit off used to live in 2976 Piedmont Way, St. Louis. Ellison realized that the family who were hung in the tree, before moving to this house, used to live in 2976 Piedmont Way, where the St. Louis family was killed. At this moment the face on the computer screen moves and looks at Ellison and turns back, which was a very creepy scene. He watches his own recording of yesterday's when he tried to go to the attic. He found that there were many hands laid on him as he was trying to go down. He shooks and closes the laptop. The same night he wakes up to the sound of projector from his office. He goes to his office to check and finds the scene where the family was being hung being played on the projector by someone unknown. He stops the projector and in his laptop he sees a man with the same face hiding in the bushes as if he was watching while the family was being hung. He checks from the window to the same spot and finds him watching him. He was hallucinating and finds something moving in the bushes. When he got there he sees his son Trevor hiding there, who was having a nightmare. After putting him to his bed, he goes out again to bring his bat. He sees a dog and while trying to take the bat, the dog, being afraid of the children standing behind Ellison, runs away. The children too vanishes. In the home he and his wife had an argument and she says to leave his profession and to get out of this place. The next day Deputy so-and-so visits Ellison. He truly wants to help him in the case, so Ellison tells him about the details he know about this case. Ellison tells him that the murderer took one child from every family he killed with him and there was a symbol on every murder site. By looking at the symbol, the deputy tells him that he thinks this murders are linked with an occult and tells Ellison to contact a professor named Professor Jonas who helps the police in weird cases. Ellison tells Deputy to find out where the Poole family murders happened. The same night Ellison watches another film called Lawn Work. There was someone spying on a family. At night someone starts the lawnmower and moves it in the ground until it mows a face of child. By seeing this, Ellison shocks himself and gives himself some time as he couldn't watch the film. After watching the clips he talks with Professor Jonas. He tells him that the symbols were not a pentagram but was associated with the worship of a pagan deity named Bughuul, the eater of the children. Bughuul tricks the children into his world and consumes their souls over time. Ellison packs the films and locks his office door. At night he again wakes up to the sound of projector running and goes to check. The same scene was playing on the projector. After turning off the projector he takes his bat and tries to find someone. I said someone because he, as well as us, don't know who is messing with the films. He hears a creak and suddenly a girl child with bruises in her face comes behind her, but he couldn't feel her presence. He wasn't able to see any of the children's but could hear the creaks made by them. The projector starts working itself again. He stops it and closes every door and window of his house and sits in the couch. In the morning he calls Deputy so-and-so again. Ellison asks him did the Stevensons family who were hung in the tree were having any problems living here and did they ever call the police. Deputy denies and tells him that because he is stressing too much about the case and because he moved himself in the crime house, he is a little freaked out. Ellison says that he thinks the house is haunted and he is experiencing paranormal stuff, which the deputy denies and tells him to take a little less stress over the case. The next morning Ashley draws a picture of this little girl in a tire swing on the wall in the hallway, and gets in trouble from her mother. The tire swing is seen in the films of the Pryor family's murder, and was on the very branch where the family died. Ashley says the girl in the picture was Stephanie, who used to live here, and father is writing his book on her. Tracy fights with Ellison for not telling her that they were living in the house where a family was killed. Tracy tells him to leave the house immediately, but Ellison denies and says that his books are his legacy and he has to find Stephanie. Later that night, Elliston wakes up to hear the film projector going running in the attic, and when he investigates he sees the ghosts of all of the missing children watching the death movies. That is the last straw that prompts him to burn the films and move his family out of that house and back to their old house in the middle of the night. They were speeding, so sheriff stops them and asks where they were going in such hurry. Ellison said he is taking his advice of leaving the town and never look back. Now back in their old house, while unpacking, Ellison finds the box of burned films completely unburned and in perfect shape. Except this time there is an envelope of extra bits of film labeled extended version. At about the same time he answers the call from the deputy, who informs him that there is a pattern among all of the victims, that each family that was killed had just moved away from the house where the last family had been killed. Since Elliston and his family lived at the murder scene of the family who were hung in a tree, and now have moved out of that house, they are next in line for death. Elliston thanks him for the information and splices the film clips together and watches them. He sees the endings of each of the murders he saw before, but this time the one child that turned up missing after every murder steps into the frame, making it obvious that it was those little children who killed their families. Each child holds their finger up to their mouth in the shush sign at the very end of their films. At this moment Elliston begins to feel a bit woozy, and glances down at the note that his daughter left him with the coffee he's been drinking, and some white sentiment at the bottom of the cup. He's been drugged by his young daughter. When he wakes up he is on the living room floor, bound with duct tape, and looking at his wife and young son who are also bound on the floor. The young girl then gets an axe and chops her family to pieces, and films it all. At the very end of the film she makes the shush symbol to the camera as the other children had done. After killing her family, Ashley paints pictures all over the walls in their blood, and draws a picture of the family in the bottom of the lid of film reels, next to pictures of all of the other families who had died, each participant labeled Dad, Mom, and shows the siblings' names and a picture of another man labeled as Mr. Boogie. Mr. Boogie is the face that Elliston had been seeing, and this is apparently the deity Bagel. The movie projector begins playing and all of the missing children are there, but they run away when they see that Mr. Boogie has walked into the room with Ashley. Mr. Boogie picks Ashley up and steps into the movie on the screen, walking away with her. In the ending shot we see that the box of home movies is ready for the next person to find and continue the cycle, now with a new home movie added to the collection. Thanks guys for watching, like and subscribe.